102 FM. Game On's Fantasy Football.
And you're very welcome along to the Game On Fantasy Football podcast. Yes, it is Game Week 22. And I'm glad to say I'm joined by Phil McGrath and Paul Caffrey from FantasyPremierLeagueTransfers.com. Good evening, lads.
How are we?
We're very good. How are you, Paul? You all right?
Very well indeed.
Good. Glad to hear it. Right, let's have a very quick look back at Game Week 21 and just flick through the results. It was Hull City 0, Chelsea 2, Hazard and Torres with the goals for Chelsea. Cardiff also went down 2-0 at home to West Ham United. Noble and Cole with the goals for West Ham. Great performance by Noble. Everton 2-0 winners over Norwich City. Morales and Barry with the goals for Everton. Fulham 1, Sunderland 4, and a hat-trick from Adam Johnson gave Sunderland a much-needed victory to get them off the bottom of the table. Ki Sung-young with the other goal for Sunderland, and Sidwell, he's got a couple over the last few weeks. He knocked in the Fulham goal. Southampton 1, West Brom 0. Lallana with the all-important winner for Southampton. Spurs beat Crystal Palace by 2-0. As we predicted, Ericsson got on the score sheet, as did Defoe. We didn't predict that. Manchester United 2-0 winners over Swansea. Valencia and Welbeck on the score sheet for David Moyes' team. And Newcastle went down 2-0 to Manchester City, who are almost unstoppable at the moment. Zeko and Negredo on the score sheet for Man City. Stoke City 3, Liverpool 5. An amazing result. Adam, Walters and Crouch on the score sheet for the home team, but 2 goals for Suarez and 1 for Sturridge and Gerrard. And where was the 5th goal?
An own goal for Shawcross.
Own goal for Shawcross. Good old Sean Cross. I suppose he was a favourite up until this year, for many a year, but we haven't advised getting on him once this season. And the last game of Game Week 21, Aston Villa 1, Arsenal 2. Wilkshire and Giroud with the goals for Arsenal. Benteke got a great header for Aston Villa, but not enough to get them any points. You had a great game week, Phil.
It was alright.
Yeah, modesty. It was bloody good.
It was good.
Better than myself or Paul, I think. Paul, how did you do?
Yeah, I got 76 points. I thought it was going to be, I was going to make some ground up on Phil, but I did slightly better, so the gap widens.
It does indeed. And it's a difficult gap at this stage of the season, but don't panic, Paul, as we tell all the fantasy football managers. And we'll try and give Paul a bit of advice. Will we, Phil? No, all right.
Everyone else can have advice. Paul, no.
Okay.
It's fine. I won't listen to you anyway. No,
that's the truth.
I'm coming to get you. Don't get too comfortable.
All right. Well, he didn't succeed to come and get him in Game Week 21. Let's have a look at Game Week 22. All right. Let's have a look at Game Week 22, and we're not going to do 3 focus games today. We're just going to run down through all of these games and pick out our best players, the ones to watch, because we're going to do a little special on playing your wild card in a couple of minutes' time. But let's start at the early game on Saturday. Sunderland at home to Southampton, who have a manager, but they don't have a chairman.
Correct.
Yes. So
it's a strange one, and some serious backpedaling from Pochettino today, because if we go back to the summer, he did state that if Nicolas Cortese left the club, he'd also go. But clearly, with Cortese gone, that statement has been rescinded. So should I say? And he said no. Cortese told me the one thing I had to promise was to stay and to win our next game. So it's real win-win for him kind of stuff. But yeah, it's an interesting time at Southampton, I suppose, with all that's going on off the pitch. I still fancy them to do well on the pitch, and my general thoughts were that if Pochettino leaves, there'll be a lot of players who had resisted the temptation to move to bigger clubs would then start thinking about getting out of it, as it looked to be a sinking ship. But with him staying, won't have too much of an immediate effect, but I think it could have certainly affected Southampton in the long run. But Adam Lallana is still the man for me to be looking at this week. For obvious reasons, I suppose his returns speak for themselves, and you'd have to fancy him to do well, despite the fact that Sunderland picked up 4 goals, but it was against Fulham, and I don't think Adam Johnson is going to get another hat-trick this week.
All right. Paul, would you go along? Let's stay with Southampton. Anyone else but Lallana for you at the moment in Southampton?
On that side of things, no. I fancy Sunderland to get a result here, so I kind of see, yes, I have Lallana, yeah, I'll slay him because my team will force me to. But I know Adam Johnson got the hat-trick, and he will be very much buoyed by the fact that Theo Walcott is out, and he can absolutely get into the England team on the left. I mean, they don't have a lot of players there, so I'd expect strong performances from him. And if you look at the home games coming up, 3 of the next 4 games for Sunderland are at home. Obviously Southampton this week, but then we've got Stoke City and Hull City. And, they're games that Sunderland will have to get a result. And then if we look at the away fixtures in between that, there's an away fixture to Newcastle, which it's always a controversial game. That's a cracking derby, so generally you see goals there, so there'll be more opportunity for Johnson there. And then, of course, in Gameweek 26, he travels back to his old stomping ground, Manchester City, where he'll be looking to prove a point. He has never been a player to bring enough consistency to get into your fantasy team, probably down to the fact he's never had enough game time over sustained periods of time. But I think the hat-trick against Fulham, you can dismiss it. You can say the set piece should have been saved, this, that, the other. And he showed flashes over the last few weeks, and he's the man I'd be looking at bringing in this week. And I think Sunderland, I think they'll get the win. Whether they get the clean sheet, I wouldn't be so sure of. I'm touch and go on whether to have Bardsley in the team.
I have Bardsley as one of my squad defender, I suppose, one of my squad defenders, and I have Key in the middle of the park. 4.8 he still is, 57 points he has scored, as opposed to Johnson's 66. Now 22 of Johnson's 66 came last week, so that's a whole third of his season's total in 1 week. Key Sung-Young has been much more consistent. He got 12 points last week, 1 assist, 1 goal and a bonus of 2. So he is any bargain basement midfielders you're considering, I think you should throw him in. Anyway, that's my say. All right, let's move on to the next game. This is going to be slightly more one-sided of a conversational. Arsenal against Fulham. Phil.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest about it. It's Arsenal clean sheet, and as far as I'm concerned, I know it's a London derby, but Fulham away from home, we're all fully aware of their capabilities, to put it politely. And the fact that Mullenstein's come in and Ray Wilkins has been appointed as his number 2, as it were, doesn't seem to be making too much of a difference to them. Despite the fact they did beat Norwich in the FA Cup replay last night, but I mean, I fancy Arsenal to do very well in this one. I'd be looking at the likes of Chesney in goal, obviously. I think Bakary Sagna is one to have a look at this week. Certainly most fantasy managers will be looking towards Mertesacker as their main defender, as the ownership stats will tell us. But I think Sagna will be an interesting differential to bring in this week. He's
5.3%.
Yeah, and he's 5.6 million. And just one for fantasy managers to be aware of. The Fulham on the road this season have conceded more chances down their left flank than any other side. So that's the Arsenal attacking right hand side. And Sagna, as we know, does like to get forward. Now, if Walcott was still fit and available, I'd be banking on Walcott this week. He's not there, but I do think Sagna will get forward. If I knew that either Oxlade-Chamberlain or Gnabry, which is probably more likely to be Gnabry who's going to play on the right hand side, I'd even maybe look towards Gnabry to bring in this week. And he's only
very tempting at that price.
He's only 4.2. But I'm not 100% whether he'd start this week. So, but if I knew he was going to start, I'd certainly say he's worth a punt. And then Giroud up front, kind of goes without saying it. With the game on the cards the way it is, he's picked up his goal last week. It's 2 goals in 2 goals in his last 2 appearances, considering he didn't feature in Game Week 20. So I'd be kind of looking to him. So to fill your boots at Arsenal players this week, because Fulham are coming to town. All
right, Paul, any other players apart from ones that Phil has mentioned?
No, it feels really, I suppose, mentioned most. The only one point is Ozil generally does it at home. That's where we see the majority of his points come. So if you haven't got Ozil this week, I'd be a little bit nervous for that.
All right. Next game, Crystal Palace and Stoke City. I didn't go to Fulham. I presumed no one argued with me, so I kept going. Crystal Palace and Stoke City. I don't see too many players coming from this. Phil is shaking his head. Paul, will you add a shake of the head to Phil's shake of the head?
I will. I suppose I'll add a clean sheet for Crystal Palace. Obviously, Tony Pulis is entertaining his previous employers who he did so much for. I mean, I'd be very much looking at maybe Joel Ward, someone of that ilk for clean sheet points, and possibly Speroni in goals. Obviously, they're very, very cheap. They're squad players, but this week I'd be looking to play them.
You're still selling the Speroni, yeah? You've kept faith with him. You've played him a good few times as well, Paul. I know he's the cheaper of your keepers, but you have given him his head sometimes.
He's one of these. I mean, the way I look on it is you will get probably one clean sheet from him every three odd games, give or take. And at 4.5 million, I'm more than happy to do that, because the other alternative is to have a Chesney or a Hugo Lloris or someone that maybe of that ilk in goal, and that limits you from being able to get 3 players into your team. So for that reason, it's part of the reason I go for a cheaper goalkeeper. And on that side of things, if we look at the fact he's had 5 clean sheets this year, I mean, leading the pack, there is only 9 clean sheets in it. So when you look at what could a midfielder from a better team get me versus, I suppose, a goalkeeper, it's going to work out being more than just a couple points for clean sheets. So it's kind of part of the reason for not investing too heavily at the back.
See, good fantasy tips, even when he doesn't want to give them away. Next one, Manchester City at home to Cardiff City. This is also a very one-sided conversation, despite Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's appearance at Cardiff City.
Yeah, and straight away, I suppose we should flag the fact that Sergio Aguero is back. Delighted to see him
back and on form.
Yep.
Took his time though to get the goal. Yeah,
50 seconds.
What was he doing for the first 49?
Don't know. 50 seconds to get a goal against Blackburn. In fairness, Blackburn were down and out at that point, but still, that'll do him the world.
Remember that
good.
Nana Cherry song? 7 seconds. 7 seconds. See, that's how long you should be waiting.
It's a good video, actually.
Yeah.
But Aguero back this week, 11.9 million. I expect that price to rise to 12 before the deadline comes to a close. And I think he's already been transferred in by almost 100,000 fantasy managers overnight. And Paul, listen up, I was one of them.
Ooh.
Negredo is gone, Aguero's back in, the king is alive, long live the king. But I think Aguero is certainly one to look at this week. Midfield, David Silva for me is still a man that has to be figured in your team. I know Yaya Toure has the lion's share of the points at the moment, but certainly he is.
Silva's only 75%.
He'll be back. He'll be alright. Kolarov at the back then looks like he's set to get more game time. He was rested for the FA Cup third round game, and actually Pellegrini completely rotated his whole back four, so that would lead me to believe that he will start this weekend. And you have to fancy him for a clean sheet, and Joe Hart and goal. And let's not forget, Cardiff did City at the Cardiff City Stadium, and Manchester City will be looking for revenge, especially given that there's an ex-Manchester United legend in the other dugout.
Interesting to see that Yaya Toure and Silva are both regarded as, I think, 75% chances of playing. And Nasri, as we know, is injured properly with his knee. And so that leaves, without Yaya Toure, Fernandinho is probably going to be playing in that Yaya Toure role.
Yeah, well, I mean, they can play Javi Garcia and Fernandinho in the middle. They'd have Navas on the right and Milner on the left. In fact, Milner featured on the left in the FA Cup with Navas on the right anyway. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. I mean, they're still going to have plenty of cover there. They have played that way before. It's not just a makeshift. They have done that on occasions. In fact, they've had Javi Garcia played a more holding role. In fact, he's even played centre half when needed. So I'd imagine he'll actually, if called upon, will sit further back. Fernandinho will push forward, and we've seen more and more from him over recent weeks that he has been getting forward. He has started to get returns, and Paul's been a big advocate of his over the last couple of weeks. But certainly, I fancy Silva and Toure to be fit for this one. I don't think they'll miss out. All
right, Paul, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I'd strongly expect Yaya Toure and Silva to be involved. So, I mean, off the back of that, look, the City. The writing is on the wall for City to go and get a huge amount of fantasy football points this week.
Yep. Are you going to ship out Negredo, Paul?
Yes. Yeah, Negredo was absolutely. He was on the hit list to go last week. Only injuries meant I was not able to I suppose trade him out. So I know he got a goal, but when you look at the manner of the goal that he scored, he missed opportunities. There was only the 95th minute, pretty much the last kick of the game when he actually delivered. So
bundled the ball in.
Yeah, he missed the shot as well. I mean, the keeper saved and it bounced back off him. So great in other cup competitions, but not so much for Fantasy Premier League.
All right. Plenty of eyes on Manchester City this weekend. Norwich are at home to Hull City in a much less impressive fixture, unless you're a Norwich or Hull fan. Hull, of course, trying to buy Shane Long as we record this podcast. It looks like it's going through. But Phil, you were saying that Norwich are very, very impressive in terms of conceding goals at home.
Yeah, well, it's probably something that most managers wouldn't be aware of, especially given the thumpings they've got on the road. But actually at home, of all the teams currently in the bottom half of the table, Norwich have conceded the fewest amount of goals at home this season. So from that point of view, they're not that bad at home. And Hull's away scoring record is the third worst in the league, behind the other newly promoted sides of Palace and Cardiff. So, you know, all the stats would suggest that a clean sheet for Norwich could be very well on the cards this week. And, you know, in terms of Norwich defenders, they don't really contribute much in terms of attacking potential going forward. So, I mean, the cheapest option for me into the Norwich defence is Whittaker at 3.9 million, and I do fancy them for a clean sheet. And at that kind of money, he could be worth bringing in for a clean sheet this week.
All right. Anyone fancy Hooper up front for Norwich? 6.1.
I do think he will do something, but I think there's far much more points available elsewhere for him to take up one of my valuable 3 spots.
All right. Hull are doing very well. Are they 10th?
Yeah.
I think they're 10th at the moment, yeah. And they are, as I said, they've got a few good players, but again, their forwards were letting them down. Shane Long will improve that forward list, Paul, won't it?
Shane Long would, and if I suppose hopefully it does go through, he'll be definitely a bargain to be looking at bringing in. Rotation was the problem with West Brom, but when he did get his games, he did score goals. I mean, off the back of that, yeah, I'd absolutely be back in Norwich to get a clean sheet. They've gotten 2 clean sheets against the other 2 promoted sides so far this season, so we'll see if they can make it a third.
Yeah, remember Jelavic is just gone from Everton to Hull as well, so they've done a bit of early business in the transfer window and could transform the year, and they're going well. So, but anyway, we're going to wait and see there. West Ham United, buoyed after that magnificent 10-man win last week, are at home to Newcastle. So, Newcastle in the back of a defeat as well. Andy Carroll, is he going to have the dream return? He might start the next game.
I think they need him to start. I think that's the truth of it. They do. I know Carlton Cole has signed an extension to his contract to keep him there, but I mean, Carroll will start if he's fit enough to do so, and having had another week's training under his belt, certainly will.
He's got a fantastic record, though. You know.
Yeah.
You look at in minutes per assist, it's best in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, that's him.
Is this Carroll?
Yeah, 1 in 19 minutes.
19,
you know?
Yeah.
That's a bit disingenuous, but if you look at Carroll, I mean, he's been held up as being this amazing, fantastic player and the solution to West Ham's problems. West Ham's problems, I think, perhaps run a little bit deeper, and I think Andy Carroll has been bigged up to be a better player than he actually is. And obviously, it's not his fault. It's just I suppose large transfer fees that have been associated with him over the years.
In all fairness to him, he's the only solution they actually have.
Well, I'm not even sure that I don't think Big Sam realistically saw him as the solution. I think it's very much a case of with the troubles that the team have had and how they've been playing. You know, it's a cute way to take the heat off the players and say, oh well, it's not their fault and we haven't got the players and we're missing a striker when we get our striker back, and it kind of keeps the heat off the players and tries to. So from that point of view, maybe that's more what it was meant.
I completely disagree with that as a strategy, though, because what you're saying to the players is you're not good enough. The other players that we really need are injured, and we're going to try and make do with you until we get them back, which puts this negative idea into the players' head. Yeah, well, and they end up losing to Nottingham Forest. Then they end up going away, losing again, and they were lucky last week to get a win, and definitely lucky. Go on.
When you look on that, you're really kind of just slating the players who are in there ahead of Carroll. And in fairness, they couldn't have messed Cole around any more by him not having a contract. They're just been nearly a month-by-month basis now at this point. So on that side of things, I'd say it's the other striking players must be a little bit disappointed. I suppose, particularly if the Keshish was available, it would have been. I think he could have done quite well, but it's. It's too early to say that West Ham are going to go and have a resurgence.
I was very impressed with Noble, by the way. As we said last week, he was brilliant. Mark Noble, he was all around the pitch everywhere you looked. He was there, and he ended up popping up with a goal. Tremendous performance. That's
the frustration with him. He's had those performances in his locker over the last few years, and he does it every so often. I mean, he needs to do it on a more regular basis, and that'll be a real criticism, because he definitely has the ability. So we'll see if he can deliver. I take penalties as well, which is always nice to have in your team.
Does he do it? Have an Nelson in his locker?
He's aggressive as well. So don't mess him or don't flag him. You'll come after you.
I thought you were going to say an apple. Right, let us move on. Newcastle are visiting West Ham. A lot of people will have them favourites for this one.
Yeah, I mean, and rightly so, I suppose. I think you would have to think that Newcastle will do a job. I mean, Remy in this one you probably fancy for a goal against a West Ham defence that are missing quite a few players. His pace and accuracy was going to cause them problems, and the usual Kabaye 7.1. The interesting one may be worth looking at for people who I know we're going to move on to wildcard in a bit, but a 4.3 million Czech TO might be an interesting squad player.
Interesting, good price. Right, another home victory surely at Anfield, Liverpool and Aston Villa.
Yeah, listen, it is what it is. Benteke scored for Villa last week as his first goal in about 4 hours out of football. I'm not getting overly excited about that at the moment. If he starts banging in a few more, I might look a bit different.
Good goal.
In fairness to him, there was a good goal. It was coming. But it's all about Liverpool this week for me. I think it is a Liverpool clean sheet at the back. Gerrard in midfield is for me the one to consider, and with Sturridge now back as well, it gives Gerrard more outlets to gain attacking points. Was, most of his points bar penalty kicks. I think he's had 4 goals this season, but he's 7 or 8 assists. Could be corrected on that now. But he, it's going to give him the chance to spray the ball around. He's not just reliant on Suarez largely converting. As we saw, Sturridge came off the bench last week, got himself a goal, got an assist. It's got to be good.
What happens to Sterling now? I think almost 8% of the game, 7.8% owns.
He'll go back to the bench.
Sterling, so it'll be Coutinho.
I think Sterling might keep his place. I think it's Coutinho who's going to be probably in a bit more danger.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think he's. The balance is a little bit off if you've got Coutinho, you've got Sturridge, you've got Henderson.
Paul, would you not play instead of playing a front 3 like they have without Suarez, without Sturridge for the last few weeks? Would you not play a front 2 with Coutinho just behind the front 2, which seemed to work well for them last year?
Well, the problem with that then is you're either leaving Gerrard or Henderson out of the team.
Yeah.
I don't think that Rodgers is going to do that. I think he likes having the two of them in there, and he seems fairly keen on, I suppose, using this system. So, I mean, in reality, Liverpool could probably play whatever formation they want, but the players are good enough that they'll go get the victory this week. But I think they're going to want Sturridge and Suarez, I suppose, continuing that awesome partnership. And really, the way for that to continue would be for Coutinho to drop out. In reality, we're probably going to see a lot of rotation. But again, it's a watch this space. I imagine Brendan Rodgers himself is probably still debating what he's going to do the weekend. So it's a difficult one to pick.
All right, even more difficult for Lambert. He has to assemble an Aston Villa squad. Benteke 8.7. I mean, he's become better value, but is anyone going to bring anyone in other than Benteke?
No, the problem, I suppose, the problem with Benteke, the goal that he scored last week was it was a goal from instinct where he didn't actually have to think about it. So the fact that he was low on confidence kind of went out the window. I mean, other players for Aston Villa, you can make the arguments, but for me, they're not going to stack up, and there's nobody who's really worth bringing into your team.
All right, let us move on to Swansea and Spurs. Swansea have a lot of problems in the midfield in terms of injury. Dyer, De Guzman, Michu, Hernandez. Jose Cañas, all out. So you have Shelby, Routledge, Alex Pozzuelo, who's a good player, Britton and Lucas.
Well, they have been lined up with Shelby, Pozzuelo, Britton and Routledge, so they'll have to continue that way with Boney up front. Listen, I don't particularly fancy Swansea for this one. I think it's Tottenham. They're doing very, very well. I think the Liberty Stadium isn't necessarily the difficult place it once was, specifically last season, to go and get goals. I think Swansea's European Cup involvement in the Europa League has caused them problems, and with the injuries to the likes of Michu and De Guzman, it's caused them other problems elsewhere. I do fancy Tottenham to do well in this one. Again, I'd be looking, I know we said it last week, but Christian Eriksen is still the man to be having a look at for me up in the midfield for Tottenham. And
still only 5.7% of managers own him.
Yeah, and he's very reasonably priced now of 7.3. I think he's at. And Adebayor up front is still sneaking around there.
Does he still make your top three? We'll find out in a minute exactly what your current top three is, but at the moment,
would I have him in there, or
do you have him in there?
No. Well, okay. I already told you the transfer I made this week.
Yeah, I know that. But who knows how many transfers you could have this week? More on that in a minute. Paul, any possibility that Swansea, do you think they can get a draw here today, or is it Spurs every day?
A draw, it's not inconceivable. I don't expect Spurs to score a lot of goals, to get a lot of points. Look, it's John Joe Shelby on the Swansea side of things. However, he's not done enough to impress me to bring him in. Eriksen, Adebayor, absolutely. If you have them, play them. No question.
All right. That was short and sweet. Now, Chelsea and Manchester United. That old match. 4 o'clock Sunday. Let's start with the home team. I presume more people will be interested in Chelsea players, Paul. I know. Yes. I have only got one of them at the moment. Most people will have Hazard. And I'll give you a percentage of that. 35.9% of people own Eden Hazard. Apart from Hazard, where else would you go? I nearly said Oscar there. You may as well start with him.
Yeah, well, look, Oscar is absolutely worth looking at. We know what he can do. He's a playmaker. He's a player who can finish. He's looking to have a big year this year, particularly with Brazil in the World Cup, and then hoping to be an integral part of their challenge for that.
What about Torres, Paul? Is it his time again? Does he look sharp? He wanted that goal the other day.
I think Torres is a differential. And he is
I actually think he mishit that.
Come back to form.
He didn't mishit it. I leave him alone.
Sorry, Paul. I'm just saying. I think Torres mishit that shot the other day. I've seen the replay from a couple of angles, and I genuinely... He was
falling over and he still managed to get it in.
I genuinely believe he wanted to put that ball across the keeper, not in the keeper's near side.
I don't know.
It looks like it came off his big toe.
Well, I look on it this way. He scored enough good goals in his career, so even if he did mishit that...
Oh, no, I'm not saying he didn't deserve the goal. I wouldn't be getting overly excited about it.
The very interesting point that Paul almost made a second ago was that this guy's a serious differential. He is only owned by how many percent of the game? Have a guess, Phil. Chelsea forward. Where are they in the league? The third. 2%. 2%. I mean... That is a differential, and it's a serious differential. Playing in front of that midfield on his own. It's tempting, Paul, isn't it?
Well, he's got 3 goals in his last 5 games that he's played.
Which is a run for him.
4 minutes against Liverpool.
Yeah.
It is, it is. The eyebrow has been raised, but I'm not quite sure whether it's time to bring him in.
The eyebrow has been raised.
Part of his confidence evaporating, if you will, was because of a very, very poor miss against Manchester United in the early days of for Chelsea, where he missed an open goal. So I don't know. I'd be surprised if Torres got a goal against Man United this weekend. But I mean, if I took off, okay, I'm a United fan, but if I took that hat off.
Well, we're asking you to take that hat off. You can leave everything else on now. We want to be very clear on this. Leave everything else on. Just take your Manchester United hat off.
Okay. I'd be saying Chelsea win every day of the week.
Yeah.
So,
3 Man United fans nodding their head. Yeah. Chelsea win. Yeah.
I have John Terry. John Terry will probably figure. He scored goals against United before, and obviously with the clean sheet threat. Last time Jose Mourinho was happy to take a draw against United. I think this time he'll be going for the jugular against them. And he'll view this as a great opportunity to knock them off the perch. And for me, I have this kind of... I have this feeling that it's going to be Chelsea who are going to win the league and not Manchester City this year. We'll see what happens.
You're not even mentioning Arsenal now.
No, I don't think Arsenal will do it. I think that when they come up in some tougher games towards the end of the season, those must-win games, I'm not convinced that they have what it takes to go and do it. I still think that the likes of Ozil could, and one or two others could will in those high-pressure situations. And although we praise Euro week in, week out, if he has one chance and he needs to score, I'm not convinced he'll do that. Whereas I think the teams of Chelsea, your Man City, I think they have more of the backbone to go and do that and mount a more serious challenge. Again, look, it remains to be seen. It's very, very exciting. And what it comes down to is we're probably going to see a season where maybe 3 teams actually deserve to win the league, and it's going to be maybe goal difference, so it's going to be a point or two here or there, which is going to make the difference.
Everything's going to be great fun this season. Everything. The bottom, the top, the middle, everything's going to be good fun. Right, Phil, before we move off Chelsea and the way to Manchester United, have you got anything to add to Paul's account of Chelsea?
No.
All right, let's move
well.
straight on to Manchester United. Then front two ravaged. Rooney and Van Persie we still think are out, which leaves Welbeck possibly playing on his own up front with 5 in the midfield away to Chelsea. They could play it like that.
I mean, it's a game Welbeck has done well in before. In the Sunderland days, he tore Chelsea apart.
Yeah, that pace would cause a slow centre back a little bit of difficulties. You won't be seeing any high line at Chelsea on Sunday.
No, absolutely not. If Manchester United are to deliver anything, it's going to be Welbeck who's going to have to be at the centre of it. It looks like still word on Van Persie. There's still nothing being said about Rooney either for this game, so very much in the dark there.
And the only thing I suppose you could look at if you were interested in the midfield is Januzaj and Valencia on the wings. Yeah, and
Januzaj has been hasn't played too many away games. He's kind of been just playing the home games mainly for Moyes. He's played only a couple of away games, so he may not even figure. And absolutely, if we look at Valencia, he's worth a look. Would expect Tagawa to be involved, but again, I don't think he's only going to get enough opportunity to score in this game to actually consider bringing him in.
All right, let us move on to the last game of Game Week 22, and that is the Monday night meeting of West Bromwich Albion and high-flying Everton. Let's go with the home team, West Brom, first. It'll be a shorter conversation. Phil, they have a new manager there.
That's nice.
Mel, his name is.
Pep
Mel.
Sounds like a drink. One of those that has a bifidus digestus and stuff in it.
Yeah. I'm sure it has some good bacteria in it. Pep Mel, just before your coffee in the morning. Anyway, where are any points going to come for the home team this week?
I have no idea.
No.
Nor do I care.
All right.
I have no interest in West Brom this week.
Any interest, Paul? Or we move straight on to Seamus Coleman and Everton?
I'm looking forward to Everton getting a lot of points, much like he did against Newcastle a couple of months ago.
All right.
On a Monday night.
Right, and can you narrow that down and tell us where the points are going to come from, please?
Really, I'd be looking at having 3 players. It will be Coleman. I'd probably throw Howard in, and then you can go for Lukaku. I know you can make the argument for Morales and some of the other players. But really, they would just be the 3 that I'd select.
They're the 3 I have.
They're the 3 you have, is it?
Yeah. Actually, I think it Baines.
Let's not forget that. Lukaku was playing at West Brom last year. Traditionally, when people go back to their old stomping grounds, they generally tend to do quite well.
All right. Right. Well, that is Game Week 22 in a nutshell. Now, before we move on, we gotta do Captain's Picks. Right, very quickly, because this will be quick. It's an Arsenal player, it's a Man City player, it's a Liverpool player, or it's an Everton player.
Yeah, pretty much. My captain this week's Aguero, Suarez voice.
All right. Simple as Aguero and Suarez is Phil. Paul says?
I'd be going Suarez and then Aguero vice. That would be well I'm thinking at the minute. Arsenal, it's too difficult to pinpoint.
Cheeky outside shout would be I'd probably look at Ericsson against Swansea, but I know Paul will disagree with that because he doesn't think Spurs will get that many points at the Liberty, but I think they may.
Adebayor is going to get 2. Negredo is my vice captain because I don't have Aguero and won't afford him, and Suarez is my captain. That's it. Simple as. Anything else to add? Nah. All right. Now, wild card special, and this is Phil versus Paul coming up right now. The tension. Paul, only fair that we start with you. I don't know why it is, but Phil said start with him. So we're going to start with you. Right, what way do you want to do this? You're going to basically pick a wild card squad that you think on current form, if you were playing your wild card now, this is pretty much the squad you would have.
That's exactly it. So really, there's kind of this week and next week to play your wild card. So looking at that, I still have my wild card to play.
All right.
So I'll be very much using my own team.
Okay.
So
well, let's we start with the keepers. Do you want to start at the back or up front? Where do you want to start?
I think we'll go position by position and then just we'll just bounce off each other. I have a feeling that we'll have some similar players, but I expect there may be some key differences at the same time.
All right, let's start with goalkeepers then. You mentioned Chesney and Howard in the last minute. I presume they would be for consideration.
Yes, yeah. Tim Howard is the keeper I've went with. The reason for that is I've looked at Everton and I thought I'm not going to have 3 attacking Everton players in my team. I'm going to have obviously Seamus Coleman, or it's a given. But outside of that, you can make the argument to have a Lukaku. But I don't see many people having Morales thrown in there or thrown in any other players which are going to significantly add to the team. And if we look at Everton, I mean, they've got Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Cardiff and Swansea all to play at home in their next 10 game weeks. And when you consider that they've collected 9 clean sheets already this season, really they're going to be adding to that over that period. As regards second keeper, I've got Calvin Davis in there just because he's 3.9 million. He's been there for the season. I know he's played a little bit recently, but in reality, he's there never to be played. I'm taking the gamble that Howard is going to be sick for the season.
Phil, do you want to talk keepers now?
Paul's right. We are going to agree on someone straight away. Tim Howard for me is in there for kind of all the reasons Paul spoke about. If I was asked to pick another keeper other than Howard, I'd go Chesney. He's 0.1 of a million more expensive, and he's leading the way with 9 clean sheets this season, so that'd be why. And my second goalkeeper is actually Manone.
They're both 5.9 actually, Howard and Chesney, as it stands.
Oh, Chesney has dropped 0.1 because he was at 6.
Yes.
But Vito Manone at Sunderland will be my other goalkeeper at 4.4. But I mean, Sunderland are improving under Poyet, and I do fancy them to do reasonably well over the coming weeks. They've got games against Stoke, Hull, West Brom, Palace, West Ham, Cardiff and Swansea to come. Now they do have to travel to City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham and United before the season's out. So certainly having Howard in there to counteract that, or Chesney to counteract those games. But I do think there is value to be had in him should you be required to call upon him.
All right. Interesting choices for the goalkeepers. Now let's complete the defence with the actual defenders. 5 defenders, Paul. Do you want to start with your cheapest or your more expensive?
I suppose what I'll do really for defenders, I've divided it in 2. I've got 3 defenders which are reasonably expensive that I'm going to play every week, and I've got 2 kind of
hangers on,
I suppose. Yeah, squad players. So I'll throw
bench
my 2
warmers.
Squad players out there. Yeah, bench warmers for want of a better phrase. I'd be looking at having Joel Ward, 4.2 million of Crystal Palace, because I do expect them to deliver clean sheets. I mean, Ward has been involved in pretty much every game this season. I had got Moxie in. He's slightly cheaper at 4 million. He has had some hamstring trouble recently, so that's the reason he gets the nod. And I suppose, looking at games, again, 3 of the next 4, as I said in the earlier part, they've got Stoke, they've got Hull, they've got West Brom at home. That's 3 of the next 4 games. So in the short term, returns from Crystal Palace will be expected. Obviously, Phil mentioned Whittaker. He's 3.9 million. Norwich are quite strong at home. No need to get into much more detail. And also, his picture is quite funny within the game, so you should check that out next time you're online.
Right. Whittaker's picture is quite funny.
Yes, I think it's quite a funny picture.
It is. He does look a bit surprised, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Right.
Surprised, and I will continue on. So they're the 2 cheaper players.
Right, get on to money bags now.
The money bag players, for me, I wanted to keep Mertesacker. Juggling things around, I can't afford to keep him. So Spania has come in. We know what he's done. He's had some broken legs over the last couple of years. He looks to be back to near enough his best. Kolarov, I've always been a big fan of him. His attacking returns are excellent. If we look at him this year, he's got 1 goal, but he has got 5 assists and 3 clean sheets to his name. And again, Manchester City, they have to entertain Cardiff, Sunderland, Stoke at home, and then they have a trip away to Norwich. That's 5 of the next 7 games. But I would expect a large return from him. And then obviously, Seamus Coleman nearly goes without saying he's got his 5 goals. He's only popped up 1 assist, which I was a little surprised at when I was going through this. And as we spoke about, 9 clean sheets for Everton. So they will be the 3 primary defenders that I went within my budget. And I've about 106 million or thereabouts to spend on this team.
All right. Phil, cheap ones first.
Yeah, Mariappa for me at Palace, 4 million. Again, I share Paul's enthusiasm for Palace's backline and the clean sheets they could potentially pick up, and just he was the cheapest kind of way in that's guaranteed some game time. Klein at Southampton is my other cheap defender at 4.4 million, again for obvious reasons with Southampton. Mertesacker, like Paul said, Paul wanted to hang on to him. I have kept a hold of him, so I've splashed out that extra 0.4 million to keep him. Seamus Coleman, as we all know at this point, is a mainstay, and the other defender I brought in is Kolarov at 5.4 million. I expect him to continue on for the remainder of the season and do quite well there, so that will be quite obvious ones really, but
Kolarov and Coleman and Sanya stroke Mertesacker. That's the
really the
McGrath Caffrey combination.
Right,
midfield.
For me, I'll start off, I suppose, with my squad midfielder, and that is Craig Noone at Cardiff. He's done quite well over the last couple of weeks, and I think we expect to see a lot more of him over the coming weeks. He's been playing very, 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 very attack-minded football, especially now with Solskjaer in there. He gets down the right-hand side. He does put plenty of crosses in. He does only have 1 assist, and that was in game week 16. But he has been playing pretty much 90 minutes most weeks since game week 16, and I expect that to continue. And he's my squad player. He isn't going to get a whole lot of game time from me, but at least I know he's there.
All right, and go up through the money.
Up through the money, a lot of similarly priced players. I suppose I'll actually go for the big money. The most amount of money I've spent on midfield is 9.3, and that's on David Silva. Again, City doing very, very well. And I expect him to continue to do well. And don't forget, he's going to be pushing for the Spanish squad to get in for World Cup. So I'll be expecting some big performances out of him as the season progresses and as City look to claim a title. Outside of that, then Ramsey is hopefully due back sometime soon. So I've brought him in. He cost me 7.1. So I'll be hoping that he's going to continue to
could be good value, that, because he's going to go back up in value when he comes back anyway.
Hopefully so, yeah. So I'll be hoping he's going to continue where he left off before his injury. Adam Lallana is another man. It's again 7.2 for him. I'll be hoping he'll do quite well. And Southampton, obviously, I don't think Southampton are in danger going
7.5 now for Lallana.
Sorry,
by the way,
I had him at 7.2. There you go. He was in my squad already. Again, like Paul, I'm basing this off my squad, and I have about 106 to spend as well. And then Christian Eriksen at 7.3 is another man that I'd be bringing in. 4-4-2 is suiting him with Tottenham, and he's been getting some good returns.
All right, Paul, midfield. Start with the squad players, please.
I really only have 1 squad player in the midfield, and that's Adnan Januzaj. And look, we know what he's doing. Even if we go back to last weekend, 2 goals, Manchester United collective, we're down to him getting the ball crossed in from both sides. Look, he's there when Manchester United are playing at home. I'll be tempted to throw him in. 4.9, so he's a little bit more expensive than Craig Noon, but again, I'd expect a little bit more from him as he seems to be maturing and performing better and better week in and week out for United.
If people don't own him already, by the way, he's 5.2, just the current price. If you're trying to buy him in, Paul obviously has him there for a while.
Yeah, he's been sitting there. Yeah, absolutely.
And your moneyed players?
Well, I suppose I'll go up in value. For me, I have Lallana and I have Ramsey. I have them at 6.5 and at 7 million respectively. They've stayed in my team. I'm taking a punt. If I'm a few weeks without Ramsey, I won't mind because he is the Arsenal midfielder I'm going to go with. I had Ozil. I've had him for a long time. Too many frustrating away performances mean that an injured Ramsey is being selected ahead of him. Now, there is a difference in money at the same time, but I do think that he's going to deliver a greater amount of points than Ozil. So I'm keeping him there. And then Adam Lallana, very much like, I suppose, as Phil mentioned, David Silva is looking to get into the Spanish squad. If Lallana continues his performance, Troy Hodgson is a very fair manager, and he'd have a very good chance of making the World Cup. So,
and it was Mrs. Lallana's birthday last week.
Really?
It was, yeah.
What age is she?
I don't know. I didn't ask. You don't ask a lady her age. No, when he scored the goal, he peeled away and he pulled up his shirt and "Happy Birthday, Mum" was written on his shirt. That's how I knew it was a subtle hint.
Oh, okay, I thought you were talking about his girlfriend. I thought you said his
mum. His mum.
His mum. I know. I saw the mum thing. Yeah, it was a nice twist, that, wasn't it? Very confident to have that on the. You can only do that 1 week, really.
You can.
Your mother's birthday 6 weeks ago, it kind of goes.
You can't really pull it up for an assist.
No. Well, just hang on there. So anyway, Lallana is there. So the two money players. I brought in Ericsson, and absolutely I'll be continuing that. Ericsson is one where we'll judge Tottenham over the next 3 or 4 games. Will their performances maintain? I'm not too sure. I'm gambling that they're going to continue under Sherwood and that Ericsson's going to keep going. And then Eden Hazard would be the main player. And I think he's an absolute fundamental. You should I really would make the argument that you should have him in your team all day, every day, because I expect Chelsea to ultimately go on, win the league, if not win the league, come very close to it, and him to be at the centre of all the fantasy points which will come as a result of that.
I just have to make this point at this juncture of the podcast that Phil doesn't have Eden Hazard and is miles ahead of Paul in the actual game.
Well, that's actually not true. Paul is correct. I do have Eden Hazard
at
the
do
moment,
have him.
but he's not in my wildcard team.
Oh, he's not in your wildcard team?
I do have him at the moment, but he didn't make it into my wildcard team.
Paul, I have apologies for that well worded but incorrect statement.
I will also just jump in and go, Phil has never beaten me in this game. We're playing for many years.
Oh, so is this the year, Paul, huh?
Is this the year?
Well, really what it comes down to, actually, when you look at it, is that Paul fancies Chelsea to go on and win the league, so he has Hazard, and I fancy City to go on, and so I've got Silva, and that's probably the main difference, is that who we expect to take the title, I suppose, really, what that comes down to. But also, I mean, okay, I'll be brutally honest, if I had an extra million to spend, I probably would have Hazard over Silva, but it just wasn't there for me.
You'd love it if you beat him, wouldn't you?
I'm not doing the Kevin Keegan.
I know, but you would though, wouldn't you?
I'd be pleased.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to the forwards. Paul, stay with you for the forwards. Your cheapest one first, please. Not too many cheap forwards, I bet you, in Paul's squad.
The cheapest forward for me is in at 7.8 million. It's a player who is existing, and it is Adebayor. Adebayor I will keep for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
And he may very well turn into Danny Welbeck, and in fact, that
impressive
was
transformation.
a very tough decision.
Where will those extra inches go? Don't answer that. 7.8 Adebayor, yeah.
I was very tempted to bring in Welbeck. Welbeck's 7.3, so there will be. I'd actually make money if I did that, but that's how it stands at the minute.
Right, and your second most expensive striker?
Sergio Aguero at 11.9.
And Suarez at 12 point something or other.
Suarez is a no-brainer. He's 12.9 for me, but he's 13.4. But I imagine everybody has him and will just keep him.
I imagine so. 53.2% of people have him. Phil, your cheapest forward in your wildcard squad?
Romelu Lukaku.
Lukaku, 8.8.
It could be. I got him in. I've had him for quite some time now, so for me, it was easier to hold on to him. If I sold him, I'd get 8.1. So that'll tell you how much I got him in for.
That's a long-term relationship. 8.8 he is.
Yeah. After that, it's the same as Paul. It's Sergio Aguero and Luis Suarez.
Difficult to argue with that.
Yeah, listen, you can't. Is the long and the short of it. I'm delighted to see Aguero back simply because that spot that's now filled by Aguero was a tricky one, and Negredo was kind of keeping it warm for him, but really Suarez was the only striker that was consistently lighting up the league, and I think now that Aguero's back, he has the potential to do the same.
Okay.
I was very disappointed to see Aguero come back. I had Welbeck up there in his spot, and I was quite happy with that. And then I had Ozil in midfield then as well. But
damn game, it just changes all the time. It's so inconvenient.
By the day. I did this before that Blackburn game, and I had to change it.
Well, we get it, the little violin. No, right, lads, that was very informative. Thank you for potentially opening your hearts to us in the pod. Whether you believe what Paul and Phil have just told each other and us, that remains to be seen and said. Right, interesting though, it is wildcard time. I don't think you'll be too far away, either of you, from what you've told us.
No, I to be honest with you, I won't be. There's maybe one.
You're going to leave it till next week, aren't you?
Oh, I am going to leave it till next week. Listen, I'm not going to. I'm happy enough with my team as it is. Looking at the team I've just named there, there's been a change to my sub goalkeeper. 2 changes at the back. One of those is a cheap defender who won't get a whole lot of game time. 3 changes in midfield with Noon, Ramsey and Silva coming in from players that I already had there. And up front, Aguero, as I already told you, came in this week anyway, so I wouldn't be changing my front line when I play my wildcard. So I don't have a whole lot of changes. I'll put it this way, if I didn't have it, would I be upset? No.
All right.
But, I do. So,
Paul, you also have a wild card. Will you be playing your wild card this week or next week?
I'm undecided, Andrew, to be honest.
That's next week.
I may look. What makes you want to play a wild card? Well, playing a wild card really comes down to seeing a weekend where a lot of the top teams are playing at home and are going to get good results. This is the week that does have that, but then, as Phil's alluded to, it's not wholesale changes that I'm looking at making to my team. It's kind of, there are 7 changes that I'm looking to make with the wild card. But realistically, there's only actually 4 of them that would impact because the others won't play because they're squad players. So that it really is a case of, do I think, should I hold fire or should I just go and bring those 4 players in this week?
The two of you just don't have enough desperation. That's the problem with you two.
Well, see, there's always that worry that you'll miss out on some new toys that may or may not go into the league over the closing days of the window, particularly the last 24 hours. So I'd like to hold off and see if there's something new there that might.
How much will Lucas Moura be?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting
That's the question.
But no, listen, like I said, I'm reasonably happy. I will hold out till next week. I've already made my change for this week and brought in Aguero, and that's it. I won't be doing a whole lot more than that. Lads,
I know it's difficult, but we really appreciate you being honest in front of each other. So thank you both for that. Little glimmers of smiles here on Phil's face. And Paul's unibrow raised again there a second ago. Paul, live time. Who has the lucky pleasure of live time? And I think it's Mr. McGrath. Saturday morning, 10:30.
10:30 till 11:30. You can join me, and please do join me. I'd be ever so lonely. 10:30 to 11:30 at Fantasy Prem Tips on Twitter, and shoot over your questions.
Girls around Ireland are waiting now. And so is Phil.
Yeah.
You can tweet him right now.
Yeah, it's free.
You can tweet him.
I don't charge you €2.50 an hour.
Thank God.
An hour?
Yeah.
Or a minute, sorry. €2.50.
He's a lot cheaper than that, ladies and gentlemen. Right.
A pint of Bulmers and a packet of dry roasted peanuts. I'm anybody's.
Yeah, for a week. All right, let's leave it there. Live time, Fantasy Premier League Transfers.com from Friday for all your last minute rumours, transfer news, latest injury news and team news, blah, 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 blah. That's all on Fantasy Premier League Transfers.com. Also some brilliant articles, even if you do so say yourselves. It's very, very good website, Fantasy Premier League Transfers.com, and live time on the Twitter machine, hashtag live time from 10:30 on Saturday morning. Lads, thank you very much for your company and thank you very much for your advice. I did enjoy this chat, as I do all the chats we have.
Slán.
Slán, lad. Paul, a foal.
See you later now.
Oh, he's making me wait. I hate that. I just hate that. Thinks he's a bird or something. On your bike.